2.5 months.
Cool. About how many people, any sense of how many people have come through?
We get about 150 customers a weekend.
That's just amazing. We got to get you up on a national stage. So, okay, without any further ado, Briarwood Dreamgate VR.
So, I thought I'd just do a low-key update. I did a presentation like right when we launched before about what we're doing, you know, what we think about VR shared spaces, how we think that's kind of like a missing element in what makes VR really impactful. VR is super isolating right now. And so we were sort of going all in on the idea that, you know, you go in VR by yourself, that's cool, but if you can go in with someone else, there's some sort of connection that happens there. And so we sort of put our money on that and started a location on October 13th. And we've been rolling with it for 2.5 months. 150 customers about every weekend, and it's been going really well. So we're profitable, which is statistically miraculous. So I'm pretty happy about that. But mostly I sort of just wanted to talk about like the sort of scrappiness to the team I have. I was just going to go through sort of the small little things we did going up to launching. We did a bunch of research on a plastics guy and make people build our really like halo-looking pylons that were making the corners look more substantial than they really are. And they wanted like tens of thousands of dollars, and my friend was like, I got a workshop, you know, and a lack of sense of safety, and I'll do it. And so I was like, all right, man, let's do it. So we built our own pylons. He got a friend that did welding. And so you can see the inside, you know, this is not what sci-fi spaceships are made out of, but this is what the inside of them looks like when it comes to movies. So we basically built this sort of sci-fi looking set for our business here. So I tasked him with it, and we tested the strength of the components, and they would break. And so eventually we were like, oh, this is our first time doing LEDs. We just got some stuff all together, got some LED strips in there, and did a bunch of other stuff. I went to MakerWorks and got a membership there and learned how to use a shop bot. I was like, you know what, let's just do the whole thing. So from the beginning, we built the games, we got the network code working and all this stuff, and bought all the equipment. And this is just, I guess, what you do when you're doing like a lean team, is you just build everything. So that's sort of like in our genetics at this point, and we're just like throwing stuff together here. And there's me learning overnight to do a shop bot. And I sort of like enlisted everyone at MakerWorks to be like, how do you do this part? And then I would just like impose myself, and eventually in a couple of days I got it going. So that was really interesting, but we pulled it off, and that was like what one of the pylons ended up looking like.
That's great. That's fantastic.
And so, yeah, it worked out in the end, and this is sort of what our location looks like.
And you still have 10 fingers.
Yeah, we do, believe it or not, yeah.
That's just amazing.
So anyway, so I guess really the significant update is that, you know, obviously we've got enough customers, we just got our first hire in, so I can get some of my social life back, maybe, theoretically. I don't think that's going to happen, actually. But, so we're hiring now, and we're in negotiations to be open the rest of the week so we can really increase our revenue. So right now we're just open Friday through Sunday. And so once we get our new lease, we'll be open every single day, got to hire some more people. And sort of we're just rolling with it, rolling with the punches. And we actually ran into some really interesting things because in the mall, we're in their public space, and their public spaces run on totally different parameters than their in-store spaces. They're basically, this has to be as family friendly as like a rated G movie. And so we had robots with lasers, and you had lasers, and you could shoot the robots. And that was something we actually couldn't show anymore. So we actually had to sort of design around that and be like, okay, how do we market this when we have lasers and robots, and that's really a big part of it. So I just like impromptu that weekend.
For the marketing, just that you had to change it, or the game change?
Well, we couldn't even play a loop. The loop we had to attract people was the robots game, people zapping lasers at robots. We were like, that's pretty innocuous. And it wasn't. We learned. And so we actually, that weekend, then I just called up a bunch of friends, borrowed my friend's DSLR, and I edited the game where we just removed the guns superficially. It was just like, invisible, invisible, invisible. And we went in, and you'll see in this video I'm about to play, the beginning is part of the edited video where we just go in and just wave at each other and do high fives. And we're like, can't go wrong with high fives. So that's what we did. Mall management was super happy. They sent it to corporate. Everybody was happy. So, like with any startup situation, you run into the most strange barriers that you never would have imagined, and so that was sort of one of them. And so we sort of won mall management over, and so we're sort of getting the feel of how malls work and how to like move on to the next malls and get more locations going. So I'm gonna play this video that we put together. High fives. But then I added the guns back in for this. And in here we actually used the fourth player as the cameraman, so we could like actually take footage in game. And we could actually add a fifth player too, so.
When did you start doing the night stuff?
That was a game we came out with just in time for launch for Halloween.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, in the zombie games it starts as day, and then it's super easy, and then it turns into night, and everybody freaks out. So it's basically our haunted house-like experience. And when we developed the game, I actually was like, to my friend who was helping me develop it, I was like, we need zombies that burst out of the ground. And he was like, that's crazy. And I was like, that's the point. So it works every time. It's the easiest.
As opposed to the real believable zombies that we're used to, right?
Right, exactly. I feel like in this fantasy world, they burst out of the ground, sure. And it's just the easiest jump scare. But so that's sort of like a pretty good representation of what we've got going now. And so what we're rolling into now from this point is doing franchising and also corporate events, just due to demands. People are just like, we will pay money, bring a mobile version of this to a corporate event, and so that's sort of the two ways we're going to get cash flow outside of just like investment and financing. So that's where we're at right now.
That's fantastic. Questions? And everybody familiar with what these guys have done? Because if you haven't experienced it, it blew me away. It was far better than I expected. Of course, I was the first one to die on our team, but that aside.
Craig, hey, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, so I actually was at the mall tonight, because my kids had to sit on Santa's lap, and I was walking, and there was like other VR pods there.
Yes.
Like, they sit, they don't move. It's not nearly as cool as this, but like, what are you seeing in terms of trends in the market, in terms of like these very public spaces, and how this type of technology is moving in?
The trend is definitely accelerating. As far as I can tell, it's a pretty obvious thing to do, especially with our numbers. Without any marketing, we got enough customers to pay the bills and have extra. And that's just people walking by. And there's malls with better foot traffic than Briarwood, so we could probably do better. And honestly, as far as trends, you're sort of wondering, like, do I think like the industry's going to grow in this way?
Well, I mean, like, that could be perceived as competition for you now in the same mall, two
Oh,
VR
yeah.
exhibits.
Yep.
And clearly yours is far superior, and I'm not being sarcastic about that, like, clearly it is. But as you see more competition popping up, like, is this going to quickly get saturated? Like, how are you guys kind of thinking in terms of keeping your advantage?
Right. That is part of the franchise motivation. The idea is that we get two benefits when we franchise. We get an extension of our branding and a little bit of extra cash flow. Really, it's a mechanism of extending our branding. The idea is that then we have more exposure to our games, our entertainment platform, greater exposure to converting customers from
so you've
non-VR.
got two games now, right?
We got two games now.
You got the original Rooftop and now the zombie game, right?
Yeah, and we're working on a Wizards game that every time I bring that up, they're like, Wizards? And I'm like, okay, I guess we're on something, you know? So, and actually it's really...
And a Western, just say.
Yeah, a Western, that's probably going to happen. Yeah, so it's actually really interesting because we get some pretty immediate feedback on our games and everything and what we did wrong. So it's like, we're learning a lot about our customers, but the biggest thing is that when we were opening, I really thought, the reason why I had like an action shooter is because I thought we'd get gamers. But we actually get a minority of gamers. I would say it's like 20%. So
because we don't go out very much.
this could be a thing. Though Play Live Nation, where gamers go, is right behind us. Yeah. And they got angry that we're there. But I would ask so many people, do you go to Play Live Nation? They're like, no. And I'm like, well, what are you doing over here? Well, I just saw you over here. I thought I'd come by. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And so actually, you know, there's a group of like teenage girls that were not in the demographic of gamer at all. And they were like, let's do it. It's gonna be crazy, you know. They all went in and they're just laughing and running around and that actually, you know, then people, it's amazing how much marketing just having people play is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once people go in there, they're like, oh, you run around in it, and it's like, yeah, all right, you jump in. But there's another thing where kids will come up and they'll be like, I want to play, and they're like, can I play with anybody? I'm like, well, right now there's no one on the list. You'd be by yourself, which is fine. And then I look at the parent. I'm like, but you can play with them if you want. And they're like, not really a gamer. And the phrase I've been saying is it's not confusing like Xbox, because most parents that don't game, you know, they give me the same story. Oh, I go in and then I just like look up and then they shoot me and laugh at me. I've heard that story like multiple times. So I'm like, no, it's not like that. You'll go in and walk around. And I call it the sledding effect, where parents will go sledding with their kids when they wouldn't normally by themselves.
Yep.
They'll look goofy because they're having fun with their kids. And they go in and they have a good time. And like I push it to parents not because I'm like a sales guy, because I'm really not. I push it to parents because I'm like, you'll both have better fun. You know, you'll both be happier at the end. So and so that's helped a lot. Yeah, and then parents.
I could see it instantly becoming, you know, something that for those of us that have lived through having an awkward teenage, you know, thing in the house, I could see this being. That was what laser tag was when my son was growing up. So
so that's obviously the laser tag market there.
Yeah.
I basically said
but this is better.
Yeah, I think so. But I was saying there's a Venn diagram of bowling alley and movie theater, and I was talking to my partners. I was like, we want everything in the middle. You know, that's like what our target is. You know, so yeah.
So what are your plans? What are your plans to get to the next level as you start talking about franchising? How are you gonna do that? Do you have thoughts on that?
Honestly, I just had people reach out to me that just through purely organic marketing, just like sitting there, standing there, and people walk up and they're like, "What's up with this?" And I explain. They're like, "Are you franchising?" People just ask all the time.
Yeah.
And that's actually the biggest thing I've been saying. This is about why franchising is important, is because you can't advertise VR because nobody believes it. Yeah. Because any of the words you use are the same words they used in the 90s, and nobody believes it. They're like, yeah, I watched Avatar. I didn't feel like I was in another world. It was still cool, but it wasn't another world. There's actually a guy, his son came up, and he was like, I'm not going to go with them. Totally convinced. later, his son must have broken him down because they both came up. He was like, all right, I'll do it, whatever. And so I was like, this guy's a skeptic. I'm going to ask him. I was like, when you go in, if I tell you right now, it's like being in a different world, would you believe me? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, I'm going to ask you that same question when you come out, and we'll see. So he plays, and he's just like, whoa. And I take off the headset, and I was like, so was it like being in another world? And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, all right. So then he goes to his brother. I guess there's a big family event. His brother, they're like 45 or 50 or something like that. And he was like, Tim, you gotta do it. You gotta do it, Tim. And he was like, why? He was like, it's like being in another world. And he was like, uh-huh. And I was like, there it is. So yeah, friends can make people do VR, but ads can't. That's sort of the thing. So
that you should have that on your business card. I definitely should put it on there.
Yeah,
it's excellent, man.
So yeah, I guess we're just since we just started franchising thing, still working on like a really solid strategy for like outreach for that. So yeah.
As I've said, and this goes for anybody here. I've got some experience in composing those kinds of things, those kinds of, what do you call it, salesy things.
Hey, all right.
Let me know if I can help you with that, and I'm available.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And I'll try and make it over to the mall this weekend if you're working.
For sure. Yeah, we're open Friday and Saturday this weekend, so but not Christmas Eve. But
we should shoot Santa Claus. So.
in VR simulator, yeah. But yeah, so we're reaching out. I reached out to Cinemark because I think theaters would be really good, and so we're seeing how that goes. But yeah, any other questions? All right. I don't have the Wi-Fi on this. Yeah, this is why I did everything offline. Okay.
That was a while ago, though. I got him a message one while ago. His dad wants to go back out and play. He's like, I got one of those on here.
So the fun thing about the zombie game is you can choose if you want a shotgun, a pistol, or a flashlight. And at the beginning, if they don't tell you the lighting is going to change, you will wonder what the flashlight is for. Until suddenly you can't see anything. Yeah. And unless your gun is
Thanks for ruining the entire game for everyone.
Yeah. But the thing that happens is, as soon as it goes dark, several players panic and start fumbling on the table to grab the flashlight. It's really intense.
I'm very excited they did that. We played on launch weekend. We had it set up too, and we were there stupidly on launch day. And we were either the first or one of the first groups
I
through
did
that
everything
day.
offline. So it's like
Yes. You had a flashlight and a pistol, and that was it.
You didn't choose?
No. So I like the adamant shooting, but and the horde eventually just got to the point where no matter what you did, you couldn't.
Yeah,
it was great.
To the point where I just closed my eyes because I was freaking out. Like they're all over it.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to try it now that it's like
giant pink behemoth in the distance. Like, Carver, you see that? And they're not looking. They're like shooting stuff, like freaking out. Like, help me!
We just kind of left them. We're like, oh no.
Sounded like you couldn't switch, and I was about to ask, so then what do you do if you pick the flashlight?
Yeah, so I think you can get 2 flashlights with the switch to you know what, if they implement melee, then you can actually still survive with both flashlights. Achievement unlocked.
Just one of those ridiculously large mag lights.
Yes,
That's why I use backlight.
Up there for seconds.
You never know.
HDMI is good.
It's awesome.
I think I ran into the TV once playing zombie.
Yes.
I think I ran into one other person once playing zombie.
Yeah.
That's because I was running and wasn't paying attention.
Panic.
Dreamgate's actually what solidified me buying Oculus Rift and starting to make anything for it. Like, trying that out was like, I had already always wanted to make something in VR. Yeah. But like, I had done like, you know, the Samsung Gear headset, which is nothing close. And then the Dreamgate launch party at that house, when we were there, I tried that out. I was like, oh yeah, this is
Ah!
I was like, I'm buying one.
We're live.
And that's
It wasn't a software problem, it was a hardware
We
problem.
were live.
And it's got adjust the.
I found out it's a whole week. I'm like dreading it now.
Alright.
The signal's no, the signal's
Yeah, it's a whole week. 2 weekends and a whole week for me to go to this auto show event.
You guys got it before?
Huh? No, I'm not even getting to experience it. The university's making me and another guy. I built something in VR, they made something in AR. They want to show that the university's making strides for VR and AR. And they're like, yeah, you're going to go out for the auto show weekend. I'm like, awesome. And I just got the itinerary and I'm going to be out there for a whole week. I'm like,
Big.
yeah, I can't get excited, but at the same time, I'm like, I work, and now I can't work. And because it's like right in my time slot in my job, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
How did the auto show?
It's next month, but I am going to the auto show. I'm going to be there all week for the press events, and then the launch weekend. So it should be fun.
Why is it doing this?
I know, I did not touch anything.
Is there an aux?
I've got two different HDMI ports, but I can't figure out how to.
You don't have any spare.
Got a short one.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Add more to this care package. I have a 25 foot base sheet, my cable sitting on the table. I looked at it and like, do we need this? No, we don't need this.
I have a 13 foot
Yeah, no, I ordered some high quality ones
There's got to be a way for me to switch
for my Oculus so I can extend my reach. And I bought a bunch of 3.3, 3.0 USB adapters. I went a little over the top.
Can we check out the gear? Is it nothing?
Sure, how? Give me that.
You're out.
Are we?
I only have one button to push.
Are we mirrored over here?
Okay, so how to get back?
No.
Okay. I was like,
They
oh,
made,
I
I think it's, yeah, they made Armor Blitz. It's I think it's a tank.
Last time.
I'm plugging my glasses. I hope we're not recording this.
Yeah, no. Well, that looks a little different.
Yes. It's omnidirectional. It's picking up everybody's voice in this room right now and should be keeping most of it. It's going to snap out some of it, but it will keep almost all of it.
It's good stuff though.
You think you can get it on your credit?
Well, no, this is.
Nope. That thing will. Yeah, no. I thought about keeping it on just to where the speaker in front would be heard. But like, nah, let's get out of protection over here.
There's usually about questions.
When in doubt, reboot.
That's some of the things that I need to buy another controller.
Yeah.
And signal.
Did I tell you that the VR MMO just launched? And that it was one of the IGDA members was working on it? not Armor, but I saw it posted in a bunch of the IGDA groups. And there's a VR MMO RPG that I've been playing way too late at night. And it's cool, it's interesting.
Hey David, have you tried setting the resolution?
Craig, where are you, Craig? I swear.
Some sort of martial arts thing where you like, so ton of people.
See, the only issue is you can't
Literally
kick.
unplugged it and now
Yeah, well,
plugged
that's
it
fine.
back
You
in.
know, hands.
Hands all day.
Let me just do what I did before and see if it magically works.
Wing chun for me.
You tried just putting everything back. Did you turn it on and off?
So I was addicted to that game.
So now you're on H2. So let's swap these guys.
People coming at you left and right, and you gotta press the button. There's only 2 buttons.
Yeah.
You gotta press it at the right time, then actually hit them. That's
awesome.
so fun.
Oh!
Okay, hold on though. It's still it's having.
Yeah, it's
And dollar for it or Xbox.
Right, there's signal.
It is the wire.
I'm pretty sure it's the wire. I thought you had a cool remote around your video.
Oh man. This is weird.
well,
And so this is.
So we just need to.
It's the cord. So that wire didn't work when you put it over there? It did. Have you guys tried this the other port?
Oh, wait. Maybe this is why we have to use the TV for.
Try the other port?
Yeah, we tried that before.
I can't find where to switch it on to. One button.
hey,
Doesn't seem to be input related either.
So I'm gonna have time to put it on.
Apparently, don't turn it off.
I'm just trying to try it. I'm guessing it's the wire.
One follow you.
Shouldn't have touched anything.
last time we found the audio microphone down there.
Let's try it.
I wonder if there's just
Yeah,
down
cool.
there.
It's so close.
Plug in HDMI 2.
Can you plug it into the instrument?
No,
Okay.
sit back.
See my tape.
That threw me off quite a bit.
Right. That button, press that
And
button,
then
press that
do it from
button.
there. Yeah. That's a smart way to do it.
Press that button.
It's much better.
And lock. No?
Hold on.
Resolution not supported. You drop the resolution? Yeah, drop the resolution.
Oh, you, okay. Yeah. That could be a thing. I can see that.
It does seem like the wire is.
Well, let's try the resolution.
Yeah.
Turn off the bandwidth, and you have less problems with the signal.
Pretty much. We had to like organize. This is probably the dumbest smart TV I've seen. It's really good. It's very hard to operate. Well, you do probably have to be smart.
Oh, no, I'm not playing it. They made a mobile version, but they were but yeah, you use 2 buttons, and basically as people are coming at you.
So if you really need to, you can use the
Let's let him try this first. If that fails, then switch back.
It's gonna lock you in there with like a bunch of other.
Yeah, there's certain enemies where you have to do a certain formation, so if you press the wrong thing, then hit you. This is about the most play for
I did my laptop.
I guess I would just 50.
There we go.
That's cool though.
It could just be this laptop.
He's king.
Gosh, I wasn't having trouble with my
Just
computer.
Yeah, so your presentation.
lightsaber range.
Yeah, I guess there's a curse.
Actually,
Like, it looks fun. It's very cool.
Oh.
Those are my favorite, because like some of them last for like 40 button presses, and it just feels so satisfying to watch you do it.
Cool.
I want to make something like that. It's not stick figure, of course.
Yeah.
I can't take it seriously.
Chibi Dr. Cartons.
I always joke with my stepdad about we used to play Fight Night all the time. I would joke about when they're going to Mike Tyson, like everybody move, you got to shake your controller to get it.
Really great. And then you go back and forth.
Ooh,
It's on the list.
So what's that?
You just loved it. Apparently, it's better than Fallout 4.
Oh.
Hey, maybe.
That's not funny.
Oh, hold on. Let's try that as well.
It's too late to talk about it now.
Come on, Larry. Laps out.
Go retro.
Maybe we should turn off the TV.
Now you're in, so it's a less stressful. Just you? Together?
Would not be a success right now.
Well, my computer's not on the internet.
Say no to that.
His parent came to get him.
Oh, hey!
I waited. Like,
All right.
That looks solid.
Yeah.
He didn't like do anything.
All right.
Let's go, let's go. Like I'm trying to like say like,
Let's not get too excited.
Would not leave.
Well, we tried two different cables.
Yeah.
And then a third.
Spark Yipsy something.
Yeah, it's right on the whiteboard behind you.
Oh yeah. Spark Yipsy key guest! Exclamation point. Well, I'm still gonna need that cable in a minute
But
here.
I feel bad for you.
It's fine. Okay.
Well, yeah, and we had an hour worth of content allocated for 2 hours worth of space.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Okay.
we're just doing the networking early.
Go back for it. Hang around. This is networking. It's all networking.
You're gifting them with network time.
You need to turn on
Let's hit the power button twice, turn it off.
the choice.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Has something to do with the light bulbs being hot. I don't know.
Okay.
Bumped the cable. I bumped the table.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, Corbin, this sounds 1,000 times better.
Awesome. I'm glad it's working.
It sounds really good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I have the gain turned all the way down. Like, so I have everything at the lowest settings. So I wanted to see if that would pick up everybody's game tonight. And then if not, we can tweak it over the next month or two to figure out what's best.
Yeah, no, it sounds fantastic.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear it.
So I'm watching a stream. I'm watching a stream of my that's not the spark.
like the complete opposite.
Yeah, there's two different Wi-Fi networks. There's also Spark Yipsy. Yipsy. Well, you're getting advertisements.
I can't wait for text to get the internet breaking. I've been watching a lot of videos.
You're still getting PC attacks. Or you get I thought I was waiting until like February.
Very important lesson out of this. Bring your own laptop. Pro tips.
Do not trust the internet.
That way,
so far I've had good luck with getting most of the one time, ordered that zero figure, like $60. And sales delivered, I didn't see it anywhere the next day.
David, David, did you try this Spark Yipsy?
Yeah, it was unopened.
That's a pretty large scale. And they don't really accommodate your hand.
Yeah, the earliest I got mine was like
that's my hope.
So if we have to go late, that's okay. It occurs to me that the administrator of the building is in charge.
The other thing,
So I had the other one set to the next one.
we're using my rig for job. So either I have to leave it there all week, which I'm not going to, or I have to buy a second set of power cables and extra cables, which I'm probably.
Didn't we say they pay for all that stuff?
We sat down to look at what computers they did have available, and they saw the bill. The question came out. Will you bring yours? See, I don't mind bringing my own laptop because it's not fun. But I'm definitely not. They bought them out.
Like I would run by. So the thing is,
It only took 2 strong men in 2 hours.
So I just kept taking customers straight up.
Woo!
They'd be sleeping every time. Put it on the table.
I guess I see that.
I'd be afraid of moving any cables at this point.
Alright, so thank you for waiting, everybody. We had some hardware issues and some internet issues, but we are finally set up. I will be the second speaker today. If you don't know who I am, my name is David Kai. I am a founder of Gaudium, and we are working on a game called Armor Blitz. And we've been working on it for quite a few years now. I'm going to test this.
Hey!
Clicker works too. Perfect. So anyways, Armor Blitz is a collectible card game, a digital collectible card game we made for mobile. It was a project that my team began about 3 years ago, 2.5 years, but it feels like a really long time now. And it was like when we were mostly all just students at that time. And we've since all either graduated or dropped out to work on it, like Kevin. So we've been moving forward on it. Our company, Gaudium, actually just formed 2 years ago. Yeah, and so it's still really fresh. We're still in the startup stages, but we've been able to get our product to a point where we have a lot of cash flow. We are profitable now, so that's a huge plus from the previous year. And now we're looking to grow, start new projects, and doing bigger things. So quick update on that and sort of our status as a company so far and what we've been doing. Now, the last time I presented was actually the very first meeting we had here as the A2 Game Dev Meetup. And so that was back in January, I think January 20th or something, which was a long time ago. So it's been almost a complete year since I've been up here speaking. Last time I actually had a talk called Making Games as a Business. So a lot of the focus on that was how to develop a title for an audience, sort of market it, and sort of build upon a product that you actually want to sell as a company, because that's something that we were doing and really focusing on at the time. And a lot of the main points I talked about was about like finding a target market, how to develop a good IP, like a good brand, and also how to like reach the customers and sort of build the product that they want. So I'm gonna sort of gloss over that. It won't be the full presentation, but there are a few points that I do want to reiterate because for us they have worked. So able to generate enough revenue to grow is really important as a company. Now, since last year, we launched November 2016, November 1st of 2016. So it was over a year ago that we actually launched Armor Blitz on Google Play. And we've been sort of growing. There's been ups and downs since then. But some of the cool metrics as far as content goes is that we've continued to develop content for the service. Because it's a freemium game on mobile, we patch weekly, bi-weekly. There was a period where we didn't patch anything for like 3 months because we were doing a ton of like really big technical overhauls. But after that, like we've been on a weekly patching schedule since for almost half a year now. Since like July, we've been constantly adding new content. We have added 40 new characters. So our characters are tank girls. They're tanks that have been personified as like anime girl characters. So they're cute, and it's sort of a collectible card game. So that's part of the aspect we have there. So we've developed a ton of new tanks to add, and that's where we generate most of our revenue from, selling those as our main product. And then we've added a ton more dialogue, probably 100 times more than what was originally in the game. And that's mainly because there wasn't that much to begin with. So we've been doing a ton of writing. I have another contract writer over in Britain that helps me out, and he's really fun to work with. He's a big fan of the game too. We have over 5,000 daily active users, and this is a number that goes up and down as we've sort of launched new builds or made bigger patches, but we've constantly had a really passionate user base that has been playing our game. And with that, we have a really cool community, a lot of fan art. Actually, last week and the week before, we were running a Photoshop competition where people had to create a propaganda piece because our game is military themed. So they did stuff like, I have a few images there. Someone like Photoshop one of our characters' heads on a GIF of like running soldiers. It's really funny. And then we have like some really good artists that have actually like hand drawn the posters for us. That was first place. And then some really cool Photoshop posters. And we had like 100 submissions, so picking the top three was actually hard.
How many hours did it take for them to do that? I mean, that's really good quality.
Yeah, it's like, that's actually like professional quality work. The first place artist is actually selling their art at Crunchyroll Expo, so they're actually like, you know, some of our fans are actually really talented artists, and that's cool because we're artists too. So having that fan base really means we're hitting our right demographic. So here are some of the launch metrics that I'm able to share. We are on multiple platforms, so one which our publisher we work with is under NDA, so we can't share that. But with Google Play, we can share whatever we want. So the Android version that is currently up on Google Play, this is actually a graph of our lifetime installs on active devices. And I think total downloads we hit 88,000, and peak installs at one time was 12,000. That was back in December, near when we first launched. So this is like the story of my life, actually, this graph right here. Back in October, we were doing like beta testing, so the graph is sort of pointing upwards. That's when we were accumulating users, marketing heavily, and actually like getting our game on actual devices during that time. And then in December, we had actually hit the front page of Google during a new and updated feature, and that was sort of our big push at the time because we had a ton of downloads. But at the same time, being on the front page means you get a lot of useless downloads too. So not all those users converted. They were a lot of them were actually low quality users, like they log in and churn after like 5 minutes. So even though downloads are great to have, the people that we really want to get are the true fans, the people that love anime, that love tanks and everything in between. And we've sort of boiled down our audience to mainly those people, and they're really great. They talk to us all the time. So like after December is when the peak really like went down. Like all those low quality users sort of just left or stopped playing. And then around April to July was actually when we stopped patching our game for a while. So we stopped doing content updates, and the reason for that was because we were preparing our game to launch on another platform, and we did some like tremendous technical overhauls. We pretty much rebuilt our game from the ground up to work on WebGL, so it's available on browser, and that was a big hit as well. So you can see in September 1st, there's like a little rebound there. That's actually where we relaunched our game onto the other platform. Yeah, question?
That downward slope there, is that actually like people uninstalling? Or
yeah,
is that,
so this is active installs. So like basically when we don't patch, it sort of just trickles down, and people get uninterested. Like the average user sticks to a game for a very short amount of time. So that's just natural decline in user base, and we didn't do any like paid marketing, so that's to be expected. Now the interesting graph here is a revenue versus buyers graph. The blue here is total revenue given on any at any point. I don't know how detailed it is, but it's basically from November 1st to now, so same span of time, and you can see that the revenue has actually been pretty stable, except for that 3 months where we didn't patch. And after we relaunched our overhauled version, where we actually made a lot of improvements to monetization, acquisition, and conversion, it actually spiked up really high, and we actually hit our peak in like 1 day spend just a couple weeks ago. So like as the game's lifespan keeps going, it doesn't mean the game is dying necessarily. It just means that you're getting the core users, and it sort of boils down to the people that really enjoy the title. And the red line there can be considered as conversion because it's the amount of spenders we have. So after our relaunch, we also gain a lot more spenders on daily as opposed to before. So even though the user base has declined, I'd say we're still on a relatively healthy track. Like we still have a lot of really passionate users that are willing to support the game and commit towards it. And this is only one of our platforms, which is Google Play. We do have our web version that is actually making a lot more than this, but is basically the same trend that we see here.
So why do you think it is that you're? I mean, I know why I'm thinking, why I've encouraged you, but why do you think that your game is appealing to a more web-oriented demographic?
There's various reasons. The ones that I believe most strongly are that the anime audience as a whole watches anime online, and so a lot of the advertising that goes out to them, especially through our publisher, is able to reach them directly. And even though there's like a ton of mobile games that are anime focused, like ARPGs, our target demographic does not necessarily match up with that perfectly, even though we do have a lot of overlap. The biggest game that we are influenced off of is called Kontai Collection, and that started off as a web game in Japan. So a lot of the heaviest fans of this genre of title are actually web game players. So it sort of just lined up with our target audience perfectly, which is why we went with a web publisher for that. And they also had a lot of experience with marketing to that audience. Now, oh yeah, question.
You with your web version, do you guys go through a third-party site, or do you run your own site?
It goes through a third-party site, but as far as the game itself goes, we're sort of like just we manage everything. We do all the patches, the downtimes, the uptimes. Yeah, we pretty much handle everything. They just handle payment processing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Since it is largely similar to Contact Collection, is it at all available in Japanese?
No. Our game is available in exactly one language, and that's English. And the reason for that is mainly because we didn't set up the game at the start to be translated, which as you build the game bigger and bigger, if you didn't properly set that up, it gets really hard to do.
Do you remember when he said about adding all of that additional dialogue?
Yeah, all the extra dialogue is, it's hard to deal with. But next title that we do, I think we will definitely set it up properly for localization. It's just that when we began Armor Blitz, it was like we were focused more on getting the gameplay prototype to market and sort of building up the core audience first. But now that we have experience in that, we can focus on the more international aspects of it, because translating can definitely help, especially to Japanese, because that's our audience.
By the way, I know Japanese.
Great. Yeah, Chris.
So you mentioned there was a correct way to set it up for localization. What exactly goes into that?
There's multiple ways to do it, but the way that, there are plugins that do it on Unity. I don't know if I should recommend using them, but if you want to get up and running quickly, you can use it. But basically, you want all the dialogue, the text to be in a spreadsheet or a JSON or some readable format that you can parse out, basically, that you can hand to someone else, and they just have to go down a column and just punch in the words. Because if you manually put stuff into Unity or Unreal, then you gotta hunt down each scene, each object, and that's not realistic.
There's issues on bounding of things like that. I mean, even forget about Japanese language, which is a whole different orientation. Simplified Chinese, we're into. But even things if you do eFigs, if you use French, for example, so French has the accent marks, so those go above and below the so if you have your letters set to fill a field that is just the right size, oops, your accent aigu has gone outside of that.
Is your WebGL platform used on all your app platforms too? Is that used on multiple platforms, or is it just web?
Well, Armor Blitz is we have an APK. It's available on Google Play. We're going to deploy a standalone Android APK as well. And then there's the web build, which is available through our publisher's website. So it's sort of just it's on their site, so they do all the marketing and stuff, but we upkeep it.
Right, but you don't use some sort of platform like the Apache Cordova or something like that. So
no.
Okay.
No, yeah, we just do Unity WebGL deploy and basically set a bunch of flags in game to make sure it's set to the right platform.
Nice.
Yep. So creating a vision is something that I want to talk about because I feel like this is an important part of our success and something that should be very important if you want to grow something like a company or grow your own studio, because a lot of independent developers can get short-sighted about it. They just want to hit the next deadline or get out the product that they want. But if you really want to build something bigger and grow, you have to have a long-term vision, which is something that we've had even back in college as students. We're we want to get this project done so we can have a portfolio piece, so we can hit this company, so we can share it with these people. And that was our 2-year plan when we barely had a prototype. And then after we had a prototype, we're we want to hit 75K revenue in this year and then grow from there. So we always had some long-term stretch goal that so far we've been able to hit, surprisingly. But having that goal in mind is very important. One of the things that we did was make sure to not be too narrow-sighted in where we drew inspiration from. And it helps that the core team is all Asian, so we all have played a lot of games from China, Korea, and Japan, which gave us sort of that advantage in knowing international trends. So knowing that Contact Collection was booming over in Japan helped us to figure out this IP, the Armor Blitz IP, and develop a product that was still growing in the West. So having that as our baseline allowed us to grab a growing fan base before most people knew it was growing. And two years later after that, we actually see tons of military anime games sprouting up everywhere. So we were actually ahead of the trend there. And playing international games and knowing that stuff helped us be there. Another thing you want to do is make the game that other people want to play and not just yourself. And this is a common pitfall trap that I feel like too many people fall under. They want to make the game that they think is fun. They might not do enough play testing. They don't send it to enough people, so you don't know if it's truly fun or not. When we made Armor Blitz, we wanted to make a game that we thought the Contact Collection fans would think is fun. Now, we didn't necessarily enjoy it ourselves, but we knew that this audience really loves this art, so we're going to get top quality art of this kind. They like strategy games, so we're going to make it heavily strategy oriented and make it not pay to win because it's free to play. So we did everything we could to sort of make the game that we knew our audience would want. And now that I think back to it, we put very little of like what we ourselves wanted to play into it because we were so focused on developing a product that we knew could sell. But because of that, we were able to sell it. We were able to find the audience relatively easily, actually, and grow social media, grow a community, and that really helped to know what kind of niche that we were able to fill in. And lastly is to still find success in other games and try to use those strategies to help yourself. So while we did use, while we did get inspired by a lot of games over in Japan, we saw a lot of the successful titles over in the US Google Play Store had these certain monetization methods. They had certain strategies to retain users. And so we did use a lot of the strategies that the games that we ourselves played had used successfully. Things like item systems that we thought were really exciting or really unique, or like monetization methods that we also saw were effective. So we basically took like this anime game was imported from Korea. Soccer Spirits was one of them that Kevin plays a lot, and he knew that it was very successful here, so we actually took a lot of influence from that game and sort of made it our own. And putting all these things together, we were able to make a product that worked, and we're really proud of that, which is it makes me really happy because as an indie developer coming straight out of college and then building up a startup to this level, it's hard to do, and we've worked really hard to get here. Now, moving forward, it's been a long time since we released Armor Blitz. I call this a mid-mortem because Armor Blitz is certainly not dead yet. It's still early in its lifespan, or at least I hope so. So as we continue to upkeep that, we're actually going to start a new project next year, which would be next month. So that's very soon. We already have ideas. Yeah.
No pressure.
Pretty much next week. But we have like a prototype in the works. We're in the idea generating phase. We brought on another contract programmer that's actually really talented, and he's also going to be helping us out to develop that while we still upkeep Armor Blitz. We're moving into a new office come January, so we actually have a new space in Ann Arbor.
So wait, the office that I was at is going to be your old office?
With Gaudium? Yeah, well that's going to be, Gaudium's moving out, and we're also moving out, so there will be a new person occupying that space. But yeah, the place we're moving into is actually like the same price, but bigger. So
We're at downtown also?
The west edge of Ann Arbor, on Huron Street. Do you know where Blank Slate Creamery is?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, it's like right next to that.
Great.
So really good space. We checked it out, and we're moving there in January, which will also give us room to grow as well. And we're also going to be pitching to publishers early next year with our new prototype idea to see if we can gain some traction there, get some initial funding, and then we're going to GDC in March. So if anyone else is going to be there, so will we. And that's going to, yeah, of course Lair will be there. So we're going to try to set up as many meetings as we can there, meet with as many publishers that might see interest, and build up from there. It'll be our first trip in GDC, which is exciting, but definitely a big step for any game company, and we will make as much connections as possible. And never stop innovating. That is something that's very important. I, as a programmer, strongly believe in this, but this applies to artists, business people too. You have to keep adapting, keep staying ahead of technology. In our case, we know that server tech is becoming more and more prevalent, which is why we're trying to develop our own Valkyrie engine, which is our own server platform. And with that, we'll be able to develop our types of game even faster. So that's very important. And happy holidays. So.
set up while we're...
Yeah, questions?
Yeah, so you say that you're starting a new project, but you're also going to kind of keep updating Arbor Blitz?
Yeah.
Where do you kind of see, I guess, where do you put like the cutoff? Like, okay, we should stop updating this, we're not getting the returns that we want. Do you have like a plan for that, or?
When Armor Blitz stops being profitable is probably when we'll slow down the updates. Right now we're doing a weekly cycle, which is actually insanely fast. Basically every week we spend at least one day just doing patching. So if we can actually slow down on that, it'll give us a lot more time to develop the next product. But right now Armor Blitz is still pretty profitable, so it doesn't make sense to slow down there quite yet.
Do you want to use the clicker?
Just a comment. I think I would be shocked if it wasn't worth the time and money and effort to get into German, Russian, and Japanese. I think what I have seen here would sell well to each of those audiences.
Yeah, definitely. One of our biggest audiences is in Germany, so they also convert very well into spenders. They pay quite a lot, so it's definitely worth getting into German, French maybe, definitely Japan and Korean. But you know, we just gotta set up our infrastructure right next time.
They're also web-based. There's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Drakensang is like got 3 million users, in a web-based game out of Germany. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? All good? Another?
How long till we see mecha anime girls mixed together? I'm a
maybe,
Macross fan. I want to see that.
Year. Our next IP is actually sort of Final Fantasy-esque, so it's more towards like I would say steampunk, with like magic and some mechs. So it's actually sort of interesting. But our other co-founder Andrew is sort of dreaming it up all in his head. So who knows? Maybe it'll go well.
Well, you know, pulling from different influences is great. I actually was looking up the quote, talent borrows, genius steals.
Yep.
So,
right.
Good artists borrow, great artists
great.
steal.
David, thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. So, our next speaker is also a repeat offender here. Spellbound has been here before. They gave a demonstration of their AR, VR solutions. Spellbound has found a really interesting niche in the healthcare space. And in particular, Spellbound had a Kickstarter that was not successful. I'm not going to say failure because it's only a failure if you don't do it again. If you do it again and you succeed the next time, then it was a learning experience, right? That's the way we brand stuff around here. So, floor is all yours.
Thanks. I'm just going to focus on talking about the updates. My name is Christina. Last time you may have met Anna, who couldn't come tonight. She was the one who talked last time. And so she sends her regrets. She's very busy playing with the HoloLens. She couldn't make it. So I came in her stead, and I'm happy to talk. You guys want to hear about what we did wrong, like the 50 million things we did wrong with the Kickstarter, or just our experience with Kickstarter and augmented reality. I'm happy to share any piece of that, so feel free to pepper me with questions, but I'll just give you guys a quick update first. So for those of you who don't know what we do, we call it augmented reality therapy. And what we do is we create mobile augmented reality that's used in hospitals to get kids to cooperate with medical treatment. And what we really replace in the hospitals is the need for sedation. They will literally put children under anesthesia just to do simple procedures, even a blood draw or simple injections. And restraints. They will strap kids down using Velcro boards called papoose boards. They'll get clinical staff to lay down on top of children just to get them to cooperate. And obviously, it's kind of shitty. So I'll say I have small children, and my then 3-year-old jammed some stuff in her ear like kids do. They just stick stuff wherever. And I thought, we're gonna have to go to urgent care. You know, they're gonna flush it out, and it's gonna be like an hour out of my Saturday. No, we went to urgent care. They couldn't get it out, so they sent us to the ER, and that's when the first time I ever saw a papoose board in person, because they literally had 2 technicians hold my 3-year-old down and then strap her to this board, and then an ENT like literally hold her head down and try to dig it out, which then they punctured her eardrum. And we ended up in the OR. They had to put her under general anesthesia in the OR, and it turned into a 1 hour, they're going to flush her ear out, into a 20-hour ordeal in the hospital. So I lived it firsthand, and until that happened, it was just a story I told that I had heard from other people. And so we do anything. We started very simply. Hospitals own mobile devices. The clinicians we sell to have iPads traditionally, and everyone has their own smartphone, which they carry around with them all day. So that's where we started. We really wanted to do hands-free augmented reality. That's where we see the big opportunity. But hospitals are not ready to adopt hardware like that, because every time you adopt new hardware, they have to develop sterilization protocols and figure out who's going to manage it, who keeps it, who makes sure it doesn't get stolen, who updates it. Because let me tell you, apologies if anyone's in hospital IT. Hospital IT is terrible. So it's like one of those things.
Windows Net 95. Absolutely.
So they just don't know how to manage it, and you can't put that burden on it and get them to say yes to new technology to bring in. And selling to hospitals is hard enough. So we started with distraction therapy, just creating immersive game-like experiences, whether they're tethered to children's books, a comfort item, something parents trust and hospitals already give out to patients, or cards systems, like physical card systems, something small a child with teeny tiny hands can hold. And started with that, just create something so immersive that they're not focusing on what's happening to them. Like this child in this is undergoing sleep study preparation, which isn't painful, it's just scary. They glue like 27 leads over your head and body, put a cannula up your nose and wrap you up like a mummy. And like a 3-year-old is not going to sit still for this. When they don't sit still, they don't get the prep done, they don't get all the sleep studies done for the night, and some kids have to have it redone, or the data they get isn't good. And this is traumatic for the kids and expensive for the hospitals. So that's what we do. We were here in August, and a lot of things we're an early stage startup. We went to market this year, and when we were here in August, I think we have 13 customers. So this is really ugly slide, but this is just kind of our update since August. So we're now at 18 customers. We've actually kind of automated that process in a sense where we kind of funnel them through our website, and they purchase on their own through their website, sign up for a year subscription. We do software as a service. And kind of low-touch sales, we're kind of perfecting that as we're figuring out how we're going to sell our next big product, which we're moving into the more physical therapy and occupational therapy, gamifying the exercise and movements kids need to do to go home on time after surgery, or maybe kids with a chronic condition. In August, at the very end, August 25th to be exact, we closed our first little bit of institutional money, thanks to Invest Detroit, and that was a big boost to us in terms of, as an early stage startup in the Midwest, trying to do augmented reality. It's really hard to convince people that it's valuable and they don't understand the industry. And since that last meetup in August, we did Malik and David. Back here, we hired Malik and David to work. So we call because this is a talented group, and these are people you guys are people who are passionate about doing this kind of work. And this is like a great resource for us, like an amazing community. And in September, we were awarded a National Institute of Health grant, a very first stage grant, to use augmented reality at the very first stage to get parents to understand how dangerous opioid drugs are when used with their children. Now, a doctor will prescribe it, and even when used correctly, many kids, even in Michigan, die every year under proper guidance and proper use of the drugs because parents don't know how to recognize the symptoms. So we're going to be creating simulations and stuff that they're going to run through a clinical program and a clinical test to see if we can enhance risk perception and help parents recognize oversedation symptoms sooner so that they can deal with that properly. So this is a big thing for us as well, because this is just the first step. Down the road, it could lead to a lot more things. And if you know what Accelerate Michigan is, it's one of the biggest business innovation competitions in North America, and it's very difficult to get in. We managed to get in this year, and we managed to make the finals 10 companies in the state, and we did win a little bit of money, People's Choice Award. So it's a big kind of like all the investors in the Midwest and actually a lot from the coast and different places come. So for us, it was really, the money was great, don't get me wrong, but the exposure in terms of what we accomplished was really great for us. And then after that, I got called to do what I thought was a podcast, and when I showed up, it was like, oh, this is the address for Michigan Radio, and it was like Emmy Award-winning Cynthia Candy who interviewed me. And I got really nervous when I walked into the recording studio because I realized it was serious and not just some rando podcast. So that was super cool, and then it was so funny because I didn't even tell my team. We'd been doing a lot of PR stuff, and like some of them were actually listening to NPR, and they were like, holy shit, she's on the radio. I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. We have our first multi-year deal with a massive hospital in New York. This is our first big 3-year, 6-figure deal, and we're about to close that. So like we're learning a lot about the procurement process, but we're like super excited about that. And we've been trying to close this, and now a seed round for us with a couple investors out of Chicago and Michigan. So trying to get that done. A lot of learning. So
there's some investors here in Michigan too. Just
a couple. A couple. Some didn't want to talk to us until after Pokemon Go made it big. So whatever. So since August at Spellbound, that's what we've been doing. I just do want to call out a few things because in the broader world, and there's many, many more things, but these were the things that we really cared about for various reasons. You know, big AR kit, AR core, big announcements, the devices in our hands now, the capability, just the huge number of people who are now beginning to develop that and find it accessible to come to it and use it. And so we're super excited about that. Of course, you got to watch whatever Niantic's doing. We were really sad in the early days. We've been going to Augmented World Expo for many years and presenting at it. I remember the first year that Tango was there, and they're walking around with these really clunky, awful looking like hardware and showing you how it mapped in real time. And we were so excited about that because in the hospital environment, every room and every procedure room is different, and until it didn't have that on the fly ability to map it, and we were really trying to figure out how to patch into that. And this is an example of like a technology that was a bit ahead of its time, but that was really a technology looking for a problem to solve. And I remember them coming even to us and begging and be like, could you use this? And I was like, really? You guys are begging just randos at Augmented World Expo to do this, but I was a little sad about that. Finally, just a couple days ago, magically finally put their stuff out, and their little steampunky glasses that we were like, okay. And then of course Elon Musk is selling his hats because he's gonna, drill under the ground, and he's gonna make $1 million. So what we see with the future, like 2018, we're looking at it as like pretty much the year. This is what we see the projections next year. So this past year, as we look back on it, this was our year.
Like the Niantic call out with the Harry Potter t-shirt. That was nicely done.
Thank you, Larry. I'm glad you caught that. Took me all afternoon. No. For us, we really focused this year on product market fit. And what I mean by that is we weren't trying to get the highest price point. We were just trying to get into hospitals, get clinical expertise on our team. Like, we're people who've been in technology or gaming or whatever for years. But we're not clinicians. And so I don't understand what it's like to be paged to an emergency situation or to be helping a family through an emergency surgery, or a child with a chronic condition who's just developed so much trauma over the procedures they have to have over and over again. I have no idea what it's like to treat them. So we spent this year saying, let's get as many customers as we can. Yeah, we're not giving it away for free, and we didn't really have much content on the platform, but let's learn. Let's learn from these clinicians. And these are the stories that are coming back and we've got some up on our website, and we write some blog posts, with our hospital partners, but like talking about, kids who, like hemo port access, where you're just sitting, they have to put the port in, and then they have to use it every week, and like sit there for long periods of time, and they can't really move around a lot, and what can you do for those kids? And, simple things, IV starts or blood draws. These are short procedures, but when a kid does not cooperate, it turns into this traumatic thing. So we've been getting a lot of really great stories back from our customers, which we were leveraging to reach more hospitals, and as well as try to convince investors to give us money. And so next year, what we're planning on doing, we've got, so I will say that this last one, the grant came in and we're starting work on that. The Stanford, we did a huge 30-foot long mural in the Stanford Children's Hospital. We used that as a target and we transformed that as a California ecosystem where animals can come out of the mural and families can interact with it. It's not just a cool thing. The #1 indicator of whether a patient is going to go home on time after whatever procedure is if they get up and walk. So we're creating destinations in the hospital and measuring like how many triggers are you going, how much are you walking up and down that 30-foot mural, and being able to send data back to those clinicians and talk about those times where they're not with their patients and not watching them, and you're relying on self-reported data of a 10-year-old, yeah, I got up and walked, So we're trying to create destinations within hospitals, and this was our very first project, and it was released this quarter, and so it's being used in a brand new wing of Stanford Children's Hospital. And in in this next quarter, looking forward, we're releasing a new product we call Magic Portal, which, because we've had so many requests for these mural transformations, there's like only the most well-funded hospitals can really afford when we say, oh, we'll start from scratch with your thing, because it's a lot of money that we charge them. But Magic Portal is the idea of rolling out kind of a generic product that any hospital might have access to, that they could, whether right now we have to use wall decals because most hospitals don't have the devices that are necessary for on-the-fly mapping, but so give them that option and transform spaces for them. And it's about, they call it patient experience, but you think about a kid, a cardiology patient, a child, they usually have to have a series of procedures, but because they're a child, they're not full grown, so they have the first one, and then they have to live in the hospital until their heart grows to a certain size, and then they have a next one, and then they have to live in the hospital until their heart grows again. And these children can be living in the hospital for very long periods of time. And if you've ever been in a hospital or visited anyone, those rooms, no matter how nicely painted they are not cool to live in as a child for long periods of time. So we feel like the power of augmented and virtual reality to transform those spaces and give kids that escape and release is critical. I'm going to be, instead of us manually pulling all the analytics to send to our customers, we're going to be creating a dashboard for them. And we're doing, we also are doing another research study with the University of Michigan, where they believe augmented reality has the capability of getting children and parents to understand complicated medical concepts, and it's actually a clinical trial where they're a controlled trial. So next up, we're going to be looking to do more patient education, more simulations and procedures, helping people to mentally prepare for what's about to happen to them, so it increases chances of cooperation. And we're going to start incorporating, there's been a lot of research about how augmented reality is appropriate for use with kids with autism, for social development, cognitive development, and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to be just taking our existing products and adding a layer in there to accommodate those kind of patients. And next year in Q3, we're starting to roll out, we've created a lot of generic things, and we're going to start piecing them together to create condition-specific programs. So like for cerebral palsy, for example, we're going to probably start with traumatic brain injury is our first thing, helping kiddos who've had one of those. And by the end of the year, we're planning on launching internationally. We've had requests from Japan, Indonesia, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And we've declined all those so far because we understand the healthcare system here, as complicated as it is. We understand it here. It's really hard to understand the healthcare system in all those countries and roll out effectively. And so we really need to scale the company before, be well prepared to scale our product, scale our marketing efforts, all those things, and as well take on that learning curve of understanding a new health system.
You also need to have a reseller for that. You really
we have to have partners in those countries and help us to navigate those waters. So it'll take us a while to develop them. We've already started one with China. It's the largest owner of private hospitals in China. And so by the end of the year, we should be able to roll out. Oh, okay, so I guess that was it. But I do want to say, I just want to express my gratitude. This is an amazing group, and I kind of want to point out, there's such cool, you guys are doing such cool things. You guys are doing such cool things, and you're making it. You know what I mean? So many companies start up, and everyone can look at the stats and see how depressing they are, and it's just about it's just the next thing you have to do. You know, you're like, no, we're just going to do this. And this is being done in Michigan. And this is what I'm super proud about. Like, you know, we're working hard and we're not going anywhere. Like, it can be done here. The talent is here. We just need to provide an anchor to keep the talent here. We've lost so many like engineers and modelers or animators to the West Coast. And the more companies that are anchoring here and providing opportunities and career growth, the better it's going to be. And I'm just super proud to be a part of this ecosystem. So thanks.
Thank you for that also. But that's the rationale behind starting this group up. So I've talked about this before. My son is a grown man. Worked at Barracuda Networks, had a successful career going. He left Barracuda Networks to go out to San Francisco because the opportunities were better there. At least that's what he thought. He went to work for some company called Twitter. I think they make a web page. I don't know. He's over at Adobe now. So could you talk a little bit about the Kickstarter?
Yeah. So we decided we were going to do a Kickstarter. Some of our products, most things we control. So we create the card systems, stuff, but the children's books, we don't. We look for already published books. And books are a popular thing in hospital. They're a comfort item, and they're trusted by parents and trusted by clinicians. And so putting augmented reality on top of that is safer in a way, and it's a nice introductory thing. And we get a lot of really moving stories from hospitals about that. But more importantly, they have already have a giving library program. So hospitals already have a mechanism where they buy thousands and thousands and thousands of books a year, because paper can't be sterilized. Once a child touches it, they get to take it home. And now every hospital has a family center, and a lot of them have a giving library program. So we already, like, hey, we can just fit into that. Just don't buy those books, buy these books. But the whole life cycle of developing a relationship with a publisher in an industry that frankly is dying and that is uber conservative is like, you know, I've had meetings with Scholastic, HarperCollins, like the biggest publishers in the world, and been like, look what I can do for your books. And they're like, we think it's the future, but prove it sells books. And we're like, are you kidding me? You won't have to let us use it, do it first before we can prove it sells books. So we wanted to explore Kickstarter as a channel for building relationships with publishers. To go to them and say, well, we won't charge you money to do this, although we need the money to do this, because that's a 32-page book, you know. But what we do is we'll combine forces and we'll do this Kickstarter to raise the money to develop it. In the meantime, we're going to mobilize your audience and get it on board our platform and mobilize our audience and, you know, kind of cross-pollinate, provide value in both ways. It's a huge marketing channel. And for publishers to get into a hospital exclusively as one of the books that a hospital buys, and it's different when a doctor hands you a book than if you just see it on a shelf somewhere, you know, Target or something like that. So they want in, but they no executive in the publishing industry is going to put their job on the line on a small startup if it's not proven it's going to work. So this was a safe way. So that's what we wanted to do. Making money is great, and of course we wanted to cover costs, but that wasn't the main goal of the Kickstarter. So we did hire an agency that is experts. At least they have the world record for the most number of Kickstarters run. So we figured lots of experience and expertise. And so kind of worked with them because we didn't have the expertise. We understood it was going to be a full-time job, and I'm trying to get a company off the ground. I'm trying to fundraise. Like, those are each full-time jobs in and of themselves. So like maybe this agency can help us. And so we had got a grant from somewhere and brought someone in, like more project manager-y person to help run it. And we had one of our team members committed to it. So we were thinking we had it covered in terms of commitment. It's always way more than you think. So we made a mistake there. I think the other big thing is like thinking about the approach. We had picked this book about mindfulness, about how do kids you know calm themselves down. And it was the story of this little girl who lived in New York City, and it was so chaotic, and how did she find a quiet place? This was like the perfect book. It had won awards. It was a perfect book to get in a hospital. And we focused on the angle of like mindfulness, or like, hey, this is for kids in the hospital. And we ran ad tests on social media, running ads, and knew which channels, and knew like, oh, hey, people who tend to like Nickelodeon will like this. And we had like got all this data. We were ready to go. We just needed to pump the money into it, and we thought it was going to churn out. So we did this big launch, and we did an in-person launch thing, like a live event, and we live streamed it and everything, and it was really successful. They say like you're supposed to get I forget all the numbers, like 30% in the first so many days, but in the first day you have to like get a certain percent, and we got that. And within 2 days, we made 2 top 10 lists, or two of the top picks. We made Kickstarter's top picks and whatever projects we love. We made both those lists in like the first couple of days. So everyone thought, whoa, you're gonna make it. Like, these are all indicators. There's always those checklists. Like, if you meet these criteria and this criteria, you're 99% likely to make it. Well, we fell like into that 1% where it just fell apart. We hit the plateau where they always say there's high interest at the beginning, and then there's a lull, and then
you have to
there's
have
this
announcements
flurry.
queued up.
Yeah, and there's a flurry at the end, and that's the engagement you should expect. And we saw that pattern, and we had been queued up and ready. But I think ultimately our fail was, if we had drawn the Venn diagram of the people who were interested in the content of the book, because that's what we focused on, and the people who are on Kickstarter, those circles were like over here. And because it turned out, we were successful in terms of tapping into a new audience we had never been able to reach before and getting brand awareness and exposure. So it was African American moms who are interested in yoga and mindfulness. Fantastic. They don't go on Kickstarter. So we had tapped into and gotten high interest and high engagement from an audience that we think can help us down the road, but wasn't helping us for that immediate project. And we should have recognized that earlier and maybe tried to pivot our messaging to say that sell the AR angle. Let's go for the technophiles, like the geeky dads and moms that are going to be the first ones to buy it. Yep. And so we didn't do that. And although we got all this engagement, all these markers were there, it was really this gap in between that audience. And for us as a B2B, we are like much exclusively B2B. We sell to hospitals. Hospitals and clinicians are not allowed to purchase through this channel. We knew that. They have to, everything has to be an approved vendor, and you have to go through procurement. There's no purchasing on Kickstarter whatsoever. So we knew the audience we'd already built was not going to, we couldn't really leverage it in terms of reliably generating. And so we spent months, like months and months, generating a new audience and creating a landing page and generating new mailing lists and stuff like that. And it's just, I think not many people, most people who are on Kickstarter are creating a product that's directly to consumer, and we were creating a product that consumers could receive, but that we're really sponsoring it for a hospital. And this, we should have just done GoFundMe. Like, it was a ton of mistakes in terms of identifying
It's only mistakes if you don't do it again. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
Had you done the project through a GoFundMe, I think you'd have had a lot better results. The other part about GoFundMe, have you guys backed or done a Kickstarter project? And do you know about Kickstarter? So if you set a goal of Kickstarter of $5,000 and you collect $4,999, you have nothing. If you didn't meet your goal, you don't get anything. GoFundMe doesn't work that way. You would take the $4,999. So that's another big difference. But really cool about that. So you have to ask two questions. One, who is your demographic, and who is Kickstarter's demographic, because you're on their platform.
Yeah, and I think Craig, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So it must have crossed, like, it must have been a thought and a trajectory maybe at some point, like thinking, oh, we could totally go consumer route. And I sort of wonder, like, what a little bit about that story. Just sort of curious, like
in general for the business.
Yeah, like what, it seems like in that Kickstarter moment, you thought, of course, like, if only this was consumer products.
Yeah.
So I sort of wonder, like, have you guys totally investigated that? And I imagine you have.
Yeah, so I'll explain where we were with that. Like, we understood that the people who are most likely to hand their phones to their children, or have, in cases where kids don't have their own iPads or own Kindle Fires or whatever the heck the families buy children, which they're not discerning. They always buy the crappy things for the kids, and Kindle Fire's camera is like just a disaster. But so there's the larger demographic is like mom is the most likely person to hand the phone, but dad is the most likely person to buy the technology. And so if we go straight up demographics for that. And so I think, to actually answer Larry's question first, like, I think if we had targeted that dad population, we would have made it. This is a hypothesis because we didn't test any of this stuff out. But I think if we had said, augmented reality, bring it into your home now. Oh yeah, and it turns a book into, you know, then oh yeah, I'm gonna bring this in. I'm gonna give it to my kids. My kids are gonna love it. And I think that would have been the thing. But in terms of, so we understood a bunch of things about the consumer market, and we also understood like how difficult it was. And this, for us starting out, this was pre-Pokemon Go. So like we couldn't even point to something and say, look how fun or exciting or successful that is. And we did give it a little bit of a go. We figured that kind of legitimizing it through, we have a consumer play. We absolutely have a consumer play. Legitimizing it first through a reputable, whether it's education or healthcare. I think going to market for B2B is a quick way. We only have to get a handful of customers to get a large amount of money, and that way we can, you know, hopefully raise funding and grow faster. But we built in our model that when a hospital pays the first subscription, they continue to buy we call them consumables, the cards and books, and they gift them to families. And so instead of giving a kid that sticker, you know, that they always taunt them with, oh, yeah, come on, if you do it, I'll give you a sticker. Kids don't care about stickers anymore. You give them something, like you give them a sticker that comes to life, they're gonna care about that. So we replace those things and they gift them to families. And now, for one customer, we'll have tens of thousands of families potentially going home with our product, it installed on their phone and using our materials. And at some point we can flip a switch to have in-app purchases for additional materials that are not in the healthcare channel. So we're seeding, we think is going to be a massive consumer market, and that play will be a couple years in terms of we are focused on creating clinical content. Kids just think it's fun, the parents just think it's fun, but it has a clinical purpose, and it's very easy to sell that as fun, but we don't want to dilute it too soon until we have enough momentum in the healthcare space. So there is, you're right, Craig, it is a consumer play. We just had difficulty. I didn't have, as a CEO, it was like me figuring out how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. And like, that's why I'm always like, dang, you guys are good. Like, you figured it out. I couldn't figure it out. And what I could figure out was how to reach hospitals and sell to them. So that was, I always pick the path of least resistance for me. Like, what am I looking at?
Three guys are talking about how they should price their game. Thank you. You can go start saying that. Three guys are talking about how they should price their game. The first guy says we should charge $5, and that seems like a reasonable number to everybody. The second guy says, no, we'll charge 99 cents, we'll sell more of them. The third guy says, we'll charge $1 million. The two guys look at him and say, how many copies do you think we'll sell at that price? He says, how many do you need to sell? So, thank you. Really cool. So I had this is by my request. So there's this company in Michigan that makes some kind of games and stuff called Stardock. Michigan's largest game company. If you may not be, but I promote you that way anyway. And so Nathan, who's been a regular here, who's always supported us, is going to show off Star Control.
All right. So in the recent past, Star Control Origins is a game we're working on now. Stardock. In October, I think, was the 25th anniversary of the release of Star Control 2. So we opened up pre-sales for Star Control Origins, which is a reboot, essentially. And as an extra bonus for people who pre-bought, we are giving them the beta for the fleet battles portion of the game. So there's actually several different aspects of the game. There's fleet battles, there's planet exploration, there's galaxy exploration, there's really exciting aliens you can interact with. There's a lot there. But we said, here's a piece that's pretty fun and stands up on its own, and we think people will enjoy today. So I don't have any slides or anything. I'm going to start it up, and we're going to demo player versus player. We're just going to bring people through, and you can track the controls, and you're going to get some feedback. It'll be a lot of fun. And let's go with it.
Fortunately, you got people that play games, so.
Huh? Where?
We also have the very exciting, you can actually build your own ships, which is pretty cool. Which we can do a little demo of that also. Let's see if we can get the audio a little bit louder.
Free controllers?
What's that? Yeah, I've got controllers. Because the music is actually pretty good. I want to see if we can get the audio up. We did have this working ahead of time, I want the. We get unplugged.
All right, good. Everybody else hear those noises, or is it just me?
So, I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but I love the music. We actually got Riku, I forget his last name, was one of the composers on the original soundtrack. I just really enjoy it. So I'll briefly pull up the crafting window. So there's a bunch of the core ships that, let's bring up the Nanath Trickster. So these are made up of parts, and you can use those parts to make your own ships. Similar to the Gelsiv 3 and Gelsiv 2 ship designers, a lot of the same people involved in that. The illustrious Paul Boyer. Woohoo! I am not an expert at this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But not only can you build your own ship designs with fancy physically based materials, it's loading up some data in the background. But you can also swap. We have a pool of weapons, and that set of weapons continues to grow. Actually, okay, here we go. You get to choose your own primary and secondary weapons for your ships. And so people who are much better at this than me can build really cool stuff, and I don't really want to dwell on this. Maybe we can talk Paul into doing some more demo in a little bit with this. But I want to go to the fleet battles. And you'll be able to upload your ships to the Steam Workshop, and other people download them. Alright, so we're going to fleet battles. We've got single player, play against an AI, which is actually very good AI. Local match.
So is
two controllers.
Do I know the AI guru?
It's actually Ben Shimchuk.
Okay.
Custom matches, and then ranked and unranked play on the internet. I played with a guy in Kazakhstan, and it was actually pretty playable. But we're going to go for local match. So you get to build out your own fleets. For the moment, we're just going to start. Paul, you want to do the first round with me, please?
You'll kill me.
That's fine. And then, basically, we'll do just one ship against one ship. When one of us dies, I'll have the control of the next person.
So that'll be me.
Organize yourselves.
Oh, which one? Oh no.
So I was just going to go with the fleet that was there.
How do I get out of this control?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. You got to talk to one of the developers.
I haven't actually ever used the controller.
So it's primary, it's secondary, and then the left thumbstick up is accelerate, and then you turn left and right.
All right. I'm gonna die horribly.
This is like his favorite game.
All right. I'm going to go with the.
So when did Star Control originally come out?
The original Star Control, I think, was 90. The one that we talked about is Star Control 2, which was 92.
Okay.
I want to win, so I'm going to be the scribe.
Okay.
All right, so there's actually some fairly sophisticated gravity logic going on
what's
here.
going on? I don't know.
I'm getting pulled into the gravitational field of that planetoid there.
How do I turn? Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So one's acceleration and one's okay. Oh.
Nope. No, that's my secondary. That's my primary. There we go.
Oh god. Ah.
So the momentum.
I always play with the mouse. This is not typical.
One of the fun things we found is the various factions, their ships, are very asymmetrical with each other. So there's a different play style for every combination of ships against each other. And sort of in the same vein as like a Super Mario game, momentum really matters. So one of the things I've learned with the scribe ship, we may not notice is when he shoots, I can't turn anymore. So what I'll do is I'll get into a nice slide, then spin the ship.
I feel like you should be dead by now.
Well, the scribe is really overpowered, to be honest. Because this is a beta, which we're putting into players' hands way ahead of release, that allows us a long time to work through balance, work through gameplay, work through visual effects, work through the controls. So pick one of these ships. They're all
There we
different.
go.
Don't surrender.
That's for me.
All right. So, and also in the adventure mode of the game, you have to face each of these enemies. So learning how to play them in fleet battles mode gives you a shot at understanding your enemy. So he, I believe, that's the Pithy. They've got an infection. So basically, one of their attacks releases these things all over the screen, and then the other attack. Actually, I think they like release some ships, and then the other attack that all of the subships shoot at once. All right, so I've also got a flat cannon here.
I like these styles. Just keep shooting. It's something sooner or later.
All right, so I died.
Come on, man. Who's next?
And I will observe and advise. All right, so you've selected the Trandle ship. So the Trandle ship, it's a little bit hard on at the 10-foot experience to see which direction they're going, which would be sort of one of the things we iterate on. Their primary ability, is that bolo shot, which is like that, and their secondary ability is that super speed, which sort of combines with the bolo shot, becomes more effective when you do it while you're moving quickly. You have to actually hit the enemy. That one is. There's also keyboard controls.
You take damage from hitting the explode.
You do. It's not a lot of damage. You also take damage if you get outside of the green circle of death. And if the match goes on too long, the green circle of death will move in to kill players.
Oh, and you lose the ships when you
lose the ships. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. It's a disc.
All right, so that's the measured.
Any good?
They're all different. Okay, so the upside. Oh,
I won.
Yes, he was almost out of health, anyways.
No, I won.
Wait.
I have no idea
Step up.
how I died.
You know you want to.
You go.
So my
No, I'm not
understanding is if you
walking
beat
on
your
the
teacher, you automatically get in.
All right, so the Taiwan, their primary is just a basic projectile, and then over time they'll build up these pod things, which you can drop. Your secondary will drop it on the screen.
What's
as
the
a
shield?
turret.
What's the circle do?
Okay, so your primary, this thing that's just on the screen, slows down the opponent, and then that's an area effect. So if you can hit them with the scroll thing, that'll slow them down and make it easier to hit them with the area effect. The other thing with the measured is the measured are straight up left, right, up, down controls.
Are you serious?
You must avenge me.
Wait, so what are the controls?
All right, so the left thumbstick is basically up is thrust, and left and right turn your ship left and right. And then your left trigger, right trigger are primary and secondary attacks. Actually, I think the right trigger is primary, left trigger is secondary.
Wait, which ones?
Doesn't matter, figure it out.
Primary, secondary.
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
For a bit
And all of the ships control differently, so it's meant to be a skill-based game.
It didn't feel all that skill-based when I was just popping out.
The more you play, the more you see the skill. Okay, so you've taken the Drekken. The Drekken have a lot of hit points. So their thing is, so their primary attack, if you hit the other guy, it'll stop them for a couple seconds. Their secondary attack, they launch these attack pods, boarding parties. The boarding parties hit for a lot of damage, but they're pretty slow. So if you can get the boarding parties out there, then stall the other ship, you've got a good chance of hitting them.
Oh,
Kevin, yeah.
All right.
That win.
Need another player.
I have a question. Is the firing like semi-auto or?
Every ship is different.
I couldn't really get a feel for it. So I thought it'd be like this fast and rested.
Yeah, for a moment when I was playing the motor things, I couldn't even tell that I was doing anything.
All right, so we got another triangle on here.
I don't know, like I was mashing it and I thought it should have fired as much as I could press it, and maybe there's like a recharge or something. Look at this, looks like a big fish. I don't know. Like there was moments where like
It looks like it does on the right side. Looks on the right side of the ship. It looks like that red bar or something.
okay, yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Hey, we got a hit. All right, who's up next? All right, so we have the famished and the Mech, I believe.
Did you get 2 kills?
I only got one.
We got 1.
So
That's nothing.
All right, so the famished, their primary attack is what we call Charboils, which is basically a fiery spike, and their secondary attack is pretty fun. It's the dinner bell. If you hit the other ship with the dinner bell, it will actually pull crew off of their ship, which you can then capture and eat.
You can see the culling of the menus.
Yeah, it's on my list.
It's cool.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So many times.
Whoa.
And then, like, just.
So can you destroy yourself by going too fast?
Yes, absolutely you can. So you just ate one of his crew members, which gives the famished health and takes it away from the other player. All right, so famished players down. We have 3 more ships here.
Alright, the other danger
Last light.
Oh, okay.
David.
Okay, so the mech techs, they can shoot out canisters, explosive canisters. They can also put up mimics.
Wait, do you have a team? Are you on my team or not?
I think did I have a team?
Don't drive into the canisters.
Oh.
All right, so we need a new player 1.
David has no ship to choose from. Like the other
New player 1.
Yeah. So we've got a turf war going on right now.
All right, we have a contender.
Pick the biggest ship.
We've already seen the biggest ship. All right.
There we go.
So again, you can drop out landing parties, or you can stall the other ship.
So are there going to be more maps?
Yeah, so there's going to be more maps, there's going to be more mechanics on the maps, and there's going to be more ships and more weapons. So we'll be continuing to roll out additional features from now through full game release.
Okay.
So one of the things Stardock does is we do a lot of post-game release. So like Gale Civ 3 today is actually a much better game than what it shipped.
Okay. So what are you guys looking at for?
I'm not allowed to talk about release dates.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned.
So one thing when I was playing, it's very, very hard to tell when you're about to die what the current state of your health is and so what's going on. You never just want to look over your right. It might be needed so there's some sort of flash or some sort of stuff.
Yep, we are aware of that problem. Okay. But thank you, I appreciate the feedback. All right, so we have a winner.
Oh, man. It is hard to control.
It's more you play.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to.
I want to summon Paul to show us a little more of the shipbuilder. Paul.
You want to embarrass me again?
I do. So we have about 5 minutes left. I want to let Paul do some fancy shipbuilding stuff.
Is there a mouse?
Does somebody have a mouse? We got a trackball.
I don't know. I don't know how to trust myself to use a trackball. Let's see. All right, let's see. Hold on.
The general idea is we're trying to like.
I'm on the case, but I have to.
So
There you go.
we have a bunch of
Where's the tower?
Oh. Games. There's some stuff.
Okay, this will be fun.
Game state's doing.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and
Okay.
gaming is where the trackers come out as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, this is not.
Use our expertise to just comments like we got this tracking solution.
Okay, so we have a ship designer. This is largely inspired by Gaudium. All of these ships here are essentially built with the same parts of all the ships that you guys were just playing with. But we let you design your own, so you can go in here. Go here and I can you can take colors.
Yeah,
I can barely see what I'm doing, so if it's super ugly, I apologize. These, we have full palettes. A lot of this is still in works. We're adding parts and parts and parts. We're probably going to need a better organization method, as you can see here. We have all kinds of crazy parts. But you can do.
You might want to resign.
But yeah, so
Can you just create like a random generator which randomly sticks random parts?
It's the closed
No, that would be a cool
No, my parts aren't in here. Anyways,
you get like a transmitter, you're like, what like a little random?
you can essentially. Now this type of stuff is entirely cosmetic. So these parts you can essentially, if you want to build an enterprise or whatever money involved, you can. It means nothing to gameplay, and that's on purpose because we don't want you to be limited, creatively, just so that you can win. And we also don't want people designing ships that are like, well, the best way to design a ship is one part that's this big with this. So, although somebody's going to come up with that. But then you go here, I think, save an outfit is over there. And sure. Okay, so now then once you're in here, here's where you actually get to pick, you get the primary weapon, secondary weapon, your thrusters, which controls your maneuverability, and your engines, which control your speed. Now all of these cost points, and I don't know if Nathan really touched on it, but in fleet battles, essentially what is happening is you have so many points, and you use those points to build a fleet. It's like building a deck of cards or whatever. So if you spend a bazillion points on one ship, you might only be able to put, 2 ships in your fleet. So you really, this is where the nuance comes in, designing the game. So, but I can essentially say I want my primary to be this, and my secondary to be this, and my thruster to be this, and my engine to be this. And is that safe?
Yep.
So now in theory, I can go to single player.
You have the save button there. Yeah.
How do I remove one, right? I can't actually see what I'm doing.
Well, in theory, you can add your ship here.
I think that's my ugly ship right now. But I think I don't have enough points for it. So where's the remove?
You just right click. Close and close. And then right click and free.
Oh, when did they get that in? That's super late. Alright. So now I can actually play my ugly ball ship. Wow. I don't know actually how to use what weapons I put on because I couldn't see the screen. Apparently I've got that green thing. Where's my secondary? Oh, I see the secondary. I wasn't within range. So needless to say, this is a demo of how not to build a ship. But yeah, so I'm sure people, and then all of these, of course, will be shareable and loadable off of Steamworks or Steam Workshop. So if you've used GalCiv, if you've played GalCiv 3 or GalCiv 2 even, you kind of have an idea of where we're going with the ship designer. But the difference is that people will actually be able to build configurations of ships that are better or worse depending on their setup. So you can go through and go, oh, I never thought to put these two together. And then as we release more and more weapons and stuff, the combos will grow and the combos will grow. And then it'll be, or you'll be able to download the Millennium Falcon, not copyright, and then change out its weapons to be the combo you like. So it should be really interesting. This is the only thing on this game I'm actually touching, so so I'm happy.
I was going to ask, is there a limit to like how big you can make the ship?
Not currently, but it's a beta.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the plug is one of the advantages of the technology basically building on. We've borrowed a lot of technology built up for Azure and Singularity, where you could put 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 units on the screen. Is we can build out really sophisticated ships and still hit our perf goals. More questions?
Any more questions?
Alright, we lost back.
Nathan, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's our last guest speaker. Does anyone have any community announcements? Anyone? Community announcements, anyone? I've got one. In January, I believe January 12th, the North American Conference on Video Game Music is coming to Ann Arbor, thanks to Professor Thompson at the University of Michigan. So, who's played Halo, right? Halo music. Does anyone know who composed for Halo? Names?
No, Marty was like the project
director. Yep, Marty O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Yep, is coming to speak and give the keynote address. Okay, so if you're interested in video game music, please consider the conference. Okay, just North American Video Game Conference on Video Game Music. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When is that?
It is early January, so January 12th, I believe.
Where is it?
At the University of Michigan.
And what's the cost for that?
I think the cost to attend is $30 to $40 for a ticket. So, yep, not bad. All right, we've got the space until 9:30, 10 o'clock, so feel free to meet each other, talk.
If anyone's interested, I brought a board game called Sight that is quite popular, and a card game that just came out called Rillamat that is a 4-player card game. So if anybody's interested in learning some new games or playing one you already know, I have.
Sight is great.
Sight is a great game and it can support up to 7 players.
Cool.
I think I'm looking for actually all of the
Okay, great. I'm a huge Sharky fan.
Dr. Ash. He has the email from university connection stuff. He doesn't play a huge part of what we do. And he has the final side.
Don't screw
He's
up.
like, I don't know what you do, but
Right, well, and to be honest, I've been watching the
We decided on my
Starting to but I've been hesitant to get into it.
not from what I heard. I know that you wanted to meet up and talk about the more afraid of enjoying game type thing. Because we do a yearly game jam every year.
That's just like watching. So,
no,
like the first one, the ships are kind of asymmetric. We're one dreadnought, immensely more powerful one. So when you're playing melee, you don't expect all this kill. Valuable ship.
And speed. Scribe Scout has the ability to construct. The takeout, the scribe, the big scribe.
7 years. Like with the kamikaze ship, the original. And how many of you have
we have chosen not to use the films.
I didn't want to pay another
Yeah, and then if you go to the Stardock forum, there's the rationale, which is like been laid out for why we chose that.
Okay, well, I think that's good. So,
one of our friends that's attending tonight is working on a VR game. Her programmer isn't programming. Is anybody interested in working on a project, a VR project?
No pressure.
What's the project about?
VR? What's the project about? You got 3 programmers already interested.
Okay, it's an action. It's a stress reliever. It's something that is really big for real, like in a brick and mortar building in Texas. But I want to bring it to a game and then just spread it out. So it's a lot of action. I call it